What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. As always, it's your boy Devin, and today we actually have a special guest for you, Justin Shoemaker. He's the quote-unquote water boy. He's the CEO of Clearwater Solutions, right? I'm not
Clear Wave, but you're close.
Clear Wave.
Clear Wave. Yeah,
Clear Wave.
Clearwater's my competition, man. Don't be giving them no props, man.
See,
Send them the wrong way.
I saw the water boy thing, and then it got thrown off. But Clear Wave Solutions, as well as he is the host of the Harmony of Hustle podcast that I was on a few weeks back. So I'm happy to have you on and tell your story, Justin. Like, honestly, it was great connecting with you the first time. So thank you for taking the time to hop on.
Man. Yeah, man. I think our episode is one of the best episodes I've had on the podcast. So I'm excited to hop onto yours, man. It's awesome.
I appreciate it. Honestly, it was fun connecting with you. It was an easy conversation. That's why, I already know this episode's going to do well, and it's going to be full of knowledge.
It's going to be fire, dude. Best one yet. Promise.
So let's start off by how did you start in the entrepreneurial space?
I got forced into it, to be honest. I spent 10 and a half years in the military, and really I just, doing that for so long. I always kind of had my own side hustles. Like, I was always into music. So I've been producing music for a long time, and I day traded for 5 or 6 years. And those were really my passion projects, but they were just side hustles. Right. And obviously I wanted those to grow, and that was kind of where my vision was. And I just thought, with my experience in the military and my last duty station, I was working with NCIS doing executive protection. So worked out of the Pentagon, protected Secretary of Navy, got to do a lot of high speed, fun shit. And I loved it. Right. And I realized going into the civilian world, I could just make this like really good money doing that. I think, a full career, federal benefits, I could clear 200K after like year 18 or whatever. So seemed like a pretty good path. And I could still do my side hustles, but I got out during COVID. So all those places that I was going to go work put a hiring freeze. So I really couldn't do anything. And I was kind of fucked, to be honest with you. Can I curse on your podcast?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool. So I didn't really know what to do. And a good friend of mine, Brandon, he was actually on my podcast, and he was selling water treatment systems. And he was like, "Hey man, I know you need work right now. You need a job. Come sell water." So I was like, "Okay, cool." At that time, I had like 30K in credit card debts, and my wife, and a mortgage, and all this stuff. So I needed to make money. And obviously I tried to get a job working for Department of Justice doing just basic security, but due to some of my injuries out of the military, like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't stand for 15, 16-hour days on hard concrete doing nothing all day. So I worked there for a little bit, quit, and then went into sales. And I just had a natural predication for sales. I, didn't get much training going into it, but I self-educated using good old university YouTube. And my second month in, I became one of the top producers, and I was clearing 20, 30K a month. And I'd never seen money like that in my entire life. And I was kind of like, holy crap, like there's something here. So I hustled there for about 7 or 8 months. I think I worked there for about a year, and I just kind of made a name for myself. A family friend of mine actually was in solar at the time, and me and him were talking because he was in sales, and he moved to Virginia Beach to help build a solar startup called Noble Solar down in Virginia Beach. And he's like, "Hey man, you should, come build this. Like, see what it's like." And I was kind of hesitant because I was making good money, but, I talked to the CEO. He had a big personality, really inspiring, very, did some stuff later down the line that wasn't so great, but, really had people bought in, and, made me a compelling offer and said I'd have the ability to build my own office. So I was like, okay, sounds great. So I jumped in, kind of quit the old job, jumped into that. And, I was able to get, build myself in the business, and I became the number 2 guy within the first 6 months because I just went above and beyond for him. And obviously at that time, he had some issues, and he ended up not really running the business. So I ended up building an office in Northern Virginia. We then consolidated it into one office down in Virginia Beach. And then in 11 months, I was able to build that company from doing 600K a year on average revenue up to 25 million in 11 months. And a lot of that I did basically on my own with the team. Obviously it wasn't all me, right? We had a good team under us that helped, but I was pretty much at the head of it, leading the charge. And it gave me the confidence, like, oh, I can do this. And after building it up, unfortunately, like I don't want to go into it, but there were some things that happened with the CEO and people that were working there, and it just kind of turned into not a very good environment. People started quitting, and I was kind of faced with a decision of, do I have to rebuild this whole thing, or can I go start my own thing? And I wasn't really a big fan of solar. So I decided, hey, I'm just going to go start my own thing. And I let that business do what it wanted to do. But I don't think I would have, honestly, I mean, especially when there's like bad things that happen at a company, everyone likes to blame the owner and things like that. But I do think, all credit to him, it gave me the experience that I needed to have the confidence to go do my own thing. Um, and I think a lot, at least for me, I would not have had the gumption to believe I can even do my own business if I hadn't worked that closely with him and worked in a business like that and helped grow it from sub 600 to 25 million. Like that was a huge number to see. And I got paid pretty well for that, and it gave me some money to actually start a business. Now that I get when I saw the money that was could have potentially made, I was like, oh, if I could do this for somebody else, I should probably just do it for me. So that's what just gave me that push out the door to do it, and now I'm here and I'm plugging along. So, yeah, my advice is for anyone, and I truly believe this, unless someone naturally has, because I don't think I had those natural entrepreneurial chops at first. If you're interested in it, just go work for somebody else and become a top producer. You'll get up right next to the top dogs, and they'll teach you everything you need to know.
No, I mean, that's amazing. And I think that people aren't necessarily born with like the entrepreneurial skill. Like it's something you mentioned it a second ago. Like you went to YouTube university. It's there's so many resources that you learn to develop and build the skills that you become that like strong leader of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Have you always had that drive to be the top producer? Because I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
could go work for somebody else, but you're what it sounds like is you separated yourself right out the gate because your natural drive, or was there something else kind of pushing you to have that natural drive?
No, I've always kind of had that. I mean, in high school, I didn't really achieve a whole lot. I was pretty skinny, pretty big nerd, played a lot of video games. And when I joined the military, I was like, it kind of was a moment I decided in my life, like, okay, I'm going to change. And at 18 years old, I got into self development and really into fitness. And I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I was like, I want to go for like the top tier I could. Didn't make it, which was fine. But when I got into the master at arms rate in the military, I just said, I'm going to just be the absolute best. I'm gonna do everything I can. I got very lucky at that time to have a mentor named Howard Dixon. Shout out to you. And this guy was kind of everything that I wanted to be at that time. He was fit, good looking dude, suave, dressed really well, had a nice place, was getting all the girls, was going to all these really fancy parties, would like be going into restaurants and people knew his name, giving him like VIP service. Like I really looked up to that. And he was really good at his job. So he was really good at the job, partied, had all these good like connections, was like a prominent person. And I really gravitated towards that. And he basically took me under his wing, and I basically learned from him. And it really kind of re-raised me to be a man. I mean, I grew up with a single mom for most of my life, and then obviously my stepdad came in later on. But how it is with parents, I wanted he really took me under wing like a brotherly figure and helped re-raise me. I like to say of becoming a man, and he just really instilled with me. Like we had a meeting with it was me and three other people when we first like went to the command, and he gave this really inspiring speech. And he says, listen, one of you here is going to fucking kill it and is going to be an all-star. The rest of you are just going to be average sailors and you're not going to go anywhere. And I ended up being the one that was the all-star. I mean, I got all the awards and accolades from that place. And it just taught me the value of hard work. And I've just always had a chip on my shoulder. I don't know really where it comes from, but I've always had a drive to be number one in anything I do. So whether it's music, day trading, if I go into something, I want to be the absolute best at it. And even if I don't become the best, as far as the metrics of the market would judge me. So like podcasting, right? I have a podcast now. In my mind, I already believe I'm the best fucking podcaster in the world. Now, there's no evidence to support that yet, right? Because obviously I'm not. So I have a bit of a delusional belief in that sense. But I believe that if you have to have that belief to really continue with things, because if you don't, you're going to stop before you get there anyway. And I've always believed if I just work insanely hard, if I can just be the best that I can at that thing, I'll be happy with it, right? And most of the time, even if it doesn't get you to the pinnacle, it'll get you to the peak. And you can be around people that are in those circles, and if nothing else, be elevated into rooms that you otherwise wouldn't be in. And I think that's just how I've always looked at life, and with the business, with this now entrepreneurship, and I go all in, I go crazy. I want to be the best at everything, and it's a inner drive I've always had. I don't know how to get people that. Unfortunately, it's just something I've always had, and I think if you can have that and foster that in yourself, um, you can achieve anything. And if I think back, if I try to figure out where that came from, I do think it started by going to the gym, building confidence on small little wins. Because when you're skinny and you're not a physically, present dude, it's hard to have confidence. I'm sorry if you disagree with these people out there, but like if you can physically have that physique and people look at like, I remember when my confidence finally shot was when I went from super skinny to when I finally looked good. Like I had muscle, I had almost kind of a six pack, not quite in, but I had biceps, I had back, dude. Like girls were looking at me differently. People talked to me differently. People acted differently around me. And I was like, holy crap, like this feels fucking good. Like people respected me just walking into rooms. Like, and I know society today says that's a bad thing, like body positivity, and that's great, but that's just in the real world, that's not how people actually work. Like when you look a certain way, people fucking treat you differently, and it feels really good. So, and I think when I was able to achieve something that at the time felt so outside what I could achieve. Like I never thought I could look a certain way. I never thought I could be a guy with muscles. And when I finally achieved like that goal, it built confidence that I could achieve any goal that I wanted. And I think that's so important for people to, if they don't have confidence, to find a goal and just focus on achieving one goal before you try to become the best at whatever it is you want to be. Just focus on a goal that's hard. And if you can get to that goal, I think you'll have enough confidence to go for the rest of your life.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree with that. And I think, I want to rewind real quick to some of the things you were saying and talk about the fact that, maybe you're not born with that entrepreneurial skill, per
Mm-hmm.
se, right? But something that you said, it actually reminded me of even myself, like when I do something like, even though, again, same thing with podcasting, same thing with our franchise, like
Mm-hmm.
there's no metric to say that we are the top dog in franchising or the top dog in the podcast, but I believe that we are the best solution, right? I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that, right? And it's one of those things where you have to have that belief in yourself and what you're doing. And whether it's somewhat delusional or not, like that's what gets you through those tough times. That's what gets you through those, those hurdles of being an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or even in the fashion of life. But I think that's what really kind of separates the people that make it and people that don't, is like, if you believe you're going to make it, if you believe that there that you can do it, then you can. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're telling yourself that you're okay or you're average or that you're not the best podcaster, well then you're going to do things that aren't the best. Like you're
Yep.
going to give half your effort, and if you're giving half your effort, then it's like, why do it at all, right?
Yeah.
Now you're just wasting your time. If like anything you do in life, like you should be giving 100% of your attention, your effort to. Otherwise, why do it? You're wasting your limited time on Earth, right?
Right. And I feel bad for people like, and unfortunately there's people who come from families or environments where they're told from a very young age they can't do something, or like you shouldn't do that. Oh, be careful. Like, you're from this town, this area, like people don't do that here, or good luck with your little freaking side hustle. We'll see how it works out for you. And unfortunately, people give into that and they believe the labels and the limitations that others impose upon them. And I think that's a horrible way to live. And if someone is living in that environment, I think and with social media now, I think the best avenue is to find a group, like a Facebook group of like entrepreneurs or people that are doing what you like, your whatever that dream is you have. Get into those groups and find those people that are hustling. And if you tell somebody your story in those groups and you're like, I need help getting out of the situation, I need people around me that can support me, dude, people will come left and right. It's like when like someone who's like really unfit or someone that's super fat, like if they go to someone that's like super jacked and ask for help, they're gonna help you all day. There's this misconception that these like super roided out big dudes are super mean. They're probably the nicest people you'll ever meet, to be honest. They just want to help. They just want people, and especially if you're willing to help yourself and you take that initiative, people will do so much for you. And if you don't have an ego about it, you're like, dude, I just want to do better and I need help. Dude, people will help you all day.
Yep, it's like that paying it forward. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, someone else most likely helped them get to where they are. And if you're willing to take the time out and ask, what can you do, or you know, how can you learn from them? They're going to give you at least the intro steps to it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with the fitness industry, I know people do get intimidated by the big bodybuilders and stuff like that. And 9 times out of 10, like you do have that, you know, that one black sheep that is kind of like the dick in the gym.
Sure.
But 9 times out of 10, like they're super friendly. Like the gym is its
Mm-hmm.
own community. Everyone is there to better themselves, right?
Yep.
So I agree with that, and I think that's huge that, you know, you mentioned that. And one of the things also you said that people, I had one of my friends, Brent, on the podcast, and we were talking about, because he moved to Mexico from Florida. He, you know, ended up just packing up
Wow.
and moving to Mexico. Loved it so
Jesus.
much. His business is still running out in Florida. He manages it from a distance and has another business that he does from Mexico. But we were talking, and one of the things that he was telling me was that, like, out there, like these family taco shops, or these family things, like the son that's like 8 years old is planning to run the taco shop one day, because, you know, that's what his dad has done and his dad has done and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so just because you're placed in a certain environment, or just because you're placed in a certain culture or something like that, doesn't necessarily mean you're limited to that. You might you might have been told that this is all you're going to be, or this is what you're supposed to do. Whether you do that is completely up to you, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have to change that perspective in your mind. And if someone's telling you you can't do this, or you can't start a business, or you're not going to be successful, like, take that and put it into a little jar, and every time you feel like quitting, you pull that out and look at it and use that as your fire.
Yeah. Well, and even like, you know, everyone's situation is different, but, you know, let's say you were in that weird family dynamic, which I'm not a part of this, so I don't really have much to lean on, but like, they're like, hey, this is a family business, you have to take it over. If you feel obligated to do so, especially if you're young, there's no, on honesty, it might actually be a good idea that before you even do your own thing, maybe give it a shot running that family business. You know, maybe pay it forward to your family, right? Don't take guilt.
Right.
Pay it forward to the family, run the business, and then if you can blow it up, maybe do your own thing. I mean, look at Gary Vaynerchuk. I think he's a perfect example of that. He, you know, ran his father's wine store for most of his early 20s. And I think, and I'm really guilty of this. I think people just want to get to the top so fast. They want the accolades, they want the recognition, they want to be that guy already. So we always rush things and we judge where we're at. I mean, I just turned 32 over the weekend, and I'm in my mind like, oh fuck, I'm almost up to 40, right? But if you look at, and Gary's a good example, and you know, he didn't even start blowing up or making content until his 30s. But if you watch him now, you don't even think about that. You just see where he's at. So in a short amount of time, realistically, from, you know, last 10 years, he went from where he was at to where he is now. So if you're in your 20s, you're fine. If you're in your 30s, you're fine. Even if you're in your 40s, you're fine. I mean, Andy Elliott, if anyone that knows him, perfect example. I mean, he was doing whatever he was doing for all of his life. And then I think he was like 42 or 41, and he started making his content in and under 2 to 3 years, he blew up. So I think for anyone out there that's doing the good, right things, I think your time will come if you continue to put in the effort. And even though it feels slow and mundane now, you'll have that rocket ship momentum if the market deems your stuff is good enough, right? And if you put in the work and have that focus to make it that good, I think you will. If you don't quit, you'll have that moment, and it'll happen quick because of all the foundational stuff that you've built onto that point. And of course, to everyone else in the market, it's going to feel like you came out of nowhere, right? Like I guarantee you, if Strive 11, you know, when that thing's nationwide or you become a nationwide personality, everyone's going to be like, oh, this Devin guy came out of nowhere. But they don't see the hours of podcasting. They don't see the hours of work put into the gym. You know, it's just people just don't see you until you've already made it. And it's so true. Like anyone that any big influencer I've found, I've always found them when they're in the millions already, which is also something to think about too. I don't know if your audience knows, but you know, Alex Hormozy, I have some of his books up here.
Mhm.
Something that's interesting about that guy. And I was thinking about this the other day, just reflecting on my own progress. I was like, you know what? I didn't even find out about this guy until last year. Yet at that time, he had millions of followers. He had already done a book launch event that had all these people into it. I didn't even know about it. He has made tons of money, and I only found out about him last year.
Yeah.
So in your own journey, you can hustle and grind, and the market is so much bigger than you think. Like you're good. Like it doesn't matter if like you haven't blown up yet. Like just focus on your little niche, and even when you are big, there's still people who haven't heard of you. it's always going to be like that. You know what I mean? So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Like no matter how you big you get, there's always someone that doesn't know you.
No, definitely. And actually, I want to tie, now that you bring, Alex Hormozy up, I want to kind of tie that back in his story and his journey, because it's amazing to see. I want to tie that into something you were talking about earlier, when asking for help and asking for, advice on how to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone sees Alex Hormozy's book launch as this genius event, right?
Mm-hmm.
He actually learned all that from someone else, and he actually was in a mastermind before he got super known, and while he was still running his actual gyms and building out actual gyms, he was actually in a mastermind, um, of the inner circle for Russell Brunson, who's
Mm-hmm.
the CEO of ClickFunnels.
Right.
And I actually have all of his books as well. And I noticed when I got Alex Hormozy's books, I was like, man, these really resemble Russell Brunson's. It was a crazy connection that I
Yeah.
didn't know the story yet. Like I heard Alex, talking about it in an interview. Um, but I was like, damn, I was like, the way these books are structured, the way it's tying back to acquisition.com, that's literally how Russell wrote his to ClickFunnels. I was like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But then I come to learn that he learned everything from Russell Brunson,
Mm-hmm.
and he learned all the online skills from Russell. And now look at what he's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like he's saying that he learned it by himself. Like he gives, homage to the people that basically taught him, right? And like you can learn and you can still grow. And just because someone else is trying to come up under you, like teaching them could excel you as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about connecting and everything like that. But just like you said, it's, you see the success. You see, I mean, we talked about this on your podcast. I knew Alex Hormozy, when he was still doing gym launch and back then,
Mm-hmm.
because I was in the fitness space, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
With some other people like Bedros Keuilian and some other people that weren't as big as they are now, but that was also a decade ago.
Right.
And now it's like everyone knows who they are, and they think that they're these overnight successes when in reality they're 10-20 year overnight successes,
Right.
you know
Yeah, exactly. And I think it highlights the fact that everyone thinks they got to go into it alone. I mean, I was pretty guilty of that, especially in my musical career when I was first starting doing that. Like, I just you kind of want to do it alone in a way because you just want to have control over it. But what people like, to be honest, man, everything that's been done has been done already. Like, innovation is basically all you do is just taking whatever you can learn from everybody else and just put your own personal twist on it, and you'll naturally be innovative. Like, it's it's actually, I think, dumb to try to figure it all out on your own when there's people that have done it for you. And you can learn the roadmap from them the same way Alex Hormozy learned the ClickFunnels stuff and how to write the books. Like, it doesn't matter if the format's the same, the content's different. And the
Mhm.
content is still, Alex's personal journey and his own worksheets and all that stuff to help you learn. So I think people get too obsessed with, I don't want to copy this person's thing because it'll look like that. Like, it looks like I'll just be a copycat. And it's only true if you don't be true to yourself. And that's when you see the people on, social media that sound like everybody else. All the sales trainers sound like everybody else because they're just copying content. They're not taking their own spin on things. But if you take your own spin on it, dude, learn from the best. I mean, it's kind of like music, right? It's a perfect example. Music has a a format to it, right? Music has a structure, and all great artists follow the musical structure because if you don't follow the structure, it'll sound shitty. But there's so much room for improvisation in music, right? There's different ways you can layer chords together, different, if you look at a keyboard, there's only so many keys. You look at a guitar, there's only so many strings, there's only so many notes in the world. Yet artists continue to innovate in how they take those same keys and chords and notes and rearrange it to create a beautiful thing. And same thing for business and sales, for anything you do, everything's already out there, right? The notes in which you can play with are out there. The way you can market is the same. The marketing's the same. It's never going to change. It's you need to get eyeballs, you need to get people interested. The only thing that changes is the medium to do so. Business is the same. You need people, you need to create revenue, you need to make profit. These core values never change. It's just the instruments that come out and the ways to use things change. And you just should always be a student of the game. And as you I truly believe, you should be able to, get into rooms that you can afford to be in, get into groups you can afford to be in. And as you succeed and grow, pay to get into bigger and bigger circles with, higher and higher achievers. And you will learn so much and it'll make your journey so much easier. Like for me, this water business would not be where it's at if I had not worked at the previous company. I built a really good relationship with the owner because I worked so hard for him and I made him a shit ton of money, right? Even though I left the company to go help a different startup, like when I told him I wanted to start my own water treatment business, he rolled out the red carpet for me and literally gave me so many tools and so much support. Like if I was just doing the business from bare bones with no support, oh my god, I can't even imagine how much harder it would be, right? And I think that's a mistake a lot of people make. They enter the entrepreneur space on hard mode for no reason. Like I gave away 10 and a half years of my life to the military, which I learned a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think it made me the person I am today. But if you're young, especially if you're like 18, you could waste 10 years growing inside of a business, become a multimillionaire, and then start your own thing and have a massive support system to continue to make you successful. I think there's a study, don't cite me, but it's like 4 out of 5 millionaires work for somebody else, I think is the study, right? If wealth is your only goal, you don't have to run a business. I mean, honestly, anecdotally, I made way more money when I was just a salesperson than I ever was running a business. Like, you know, way more. Um, and now obviously eventually that curve will change, right? Like the whole reason why you start a business is for the freedom and to make more money than you could. And once the business is like up and running and you have things, you have salespeople that can do stuff for you, you have managers in place, like it does get to a point to where, yeah, that delta changes. But for the first couple of years, man, you're eating shit and you're taking a big pay cut for your dreams for sure. But yeah, if money's the motivation, just go work for a sales company, become the best. You can make $1 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, even if your goal is to run your own business, like if you work for someone else, you learn the skills and the systems and processes that you need to have that business run. Like,
Exactly.
what does HR look like? What does a sales process look like? What happens with payroll? Like all the things that you
Mm-hmm.
don't know just from being an employee,
Mm-hmm.
or like a base level employee or never starting. Like you learn those things as you grow within a company, right? So
Yep.
now when you start your own thing, you know that you need to do A, B, C all the way through Z, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
just have this outside view of, oh, it's just A through D.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like if I didn't work for that solar company, I would have no idea how important having a CRM is because, especially with solar projects, like the sales cycles are so long. They're so like compared to water, like fulfillment in solar is freaking difficult, right? You have permits, you got to do site surveys. There's so much stuff you got to get done. Um, so seeing how like the lack of having that implemented in the correct way, like I got to see firsthand how it literally destroyed the business. Like because we got to a point where you can't have a lopsided company, right? Obviously, you need sales to generate revenue, but we got to a point where our revenue generation, like our sales, like realistically, we didn't do this, but we should have for the health of the company, is told the salespeople stop selling because the more we were selling, the further we were getting behind on getting permits permitted, and because we didn't have an operations team that could handle it, we didn't have systems in place that could keep up with that kind of volume, and I got to see firsthand like how important having operations in place is. So when I actually built my business, I heavily over indexed to have operations ready to rock and roll to be able to basically allow my salespeople to break the system. So I designed it in a way so that I can grow my salespeople indefinitely and keep that volume coming in indefinitely and keep the operations top notch. Like right now we have the operations that could easily facilitate $100 million business. Right now we're not $100 million business, but we set it up in the way so it can facilitate that because what I found too is obviously you don't want to be all operations heavy, but when you have that back end support kind of set up, it saves you money because I don't have to hire a bunch of office people to do things that I can automate in the CRM. Um, but it also, when you're starting out, your customer experience is so like your reputation is so important early on. But what kind of sucks is if you're early on, you tend not to have the systems in place to deliver top-notch customer experience. So you can almost shoot yourself in the foot because you want to grow and at the goodness of your heart, you want to deliver a really good customer experience, but sometimes you fall short because you just don't have the things in place. So it's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I highly recommend if you work for another business, you'll know those people that can do that for you. I would highly recommend, because you can't probably afford them if they're talented right off the bat. Bring them on and give them an equity structure. Now, you don't give them all equity right off the bat, because that would be dumb. But you tell them, like, hey, listen, if we hit these benchmarks and you stay for this number of years, you put them on a shelf and they get pieces of equity as they hit these benchmarks. Right? It's a really, really good way to keep high value talent in your organization without having to pay for it right away. And it shows they have skin in the game too, because they're basically going to be working for free while you grow the business,
Yeah, definitely.
and then really, if you have one operations guy, and if you can get a couple like killer salespeople, and then one guy to do fulfillment, depending on what your industry is. So for like me, it's a plumber. You could grow to 100K with just that alone. You can get to 100K a month just with that alone. Um, but all systems need to be equal. And if you don't have that in place, you're going to set yourself up for failure. I still know a lot of companies that run off Google spreadsheets, and that can work for a little while. But when you start doing volume, the amount of error that you open yourself up to is horrendous. You need to add more man hours to everything.
So what is your with you started in solar, or you moved into solar, and then from solar you moved into the water treatment.
Back into water, yeah.
Oh, so water was what you originally were in.
Yeah. I started in water. I was selling water treatment, and then I got headhunted to go do the solar company. And then when I decided to leave, I decided to go back into water.
Okay. And so, I mean, with you then, so before solar, when you started in water, like, what was your interest in it? Like, the reason I'm asking is people think that they have to have their passion or do what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And like you said, you switched over to solar, you were successful, you were growing it. And then the reason you left was because of issues within the company, but you didn't really have an innate drive to do solar.
No.
So what did you have that drive for water, or do you have that drive for water, or is it just because you see it's a valuable business?
Well, I believe in it more because it aligns with my values of fitness and health. And, initially when I got into selling water, I couldn't have cared less. I mean, at that point, I just thought water was water, right? I didn't know anything about it. But when I went through the training, that company gives a really detailed training. So you learn a lot about, water and how gross it is. And you get to see that you do the testing as well. And I think that's why I knew I wanted to do it, because when I saw the tests, I bought a system. I was like, holy crap, this is so fucking gross. And I was like, if I believe this strongly about it after not knowing anything about it, why would anybody else not want to get this done? When you realize how much it affects your skin and your hair every day, when you realize how much it affects your health every day, just drinking city water you think should be safe, like it really does mess you up long term. And obviously with well water, there's a ton of issues there, but I just really saw, I was like, it triggered me so much, and I was so grossed out. I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then when I got a system, the change in my quality of life was so dramatic. I was just like, this is incredible. So I started selling it. And then I had one moment that I'll never forget, where I had a client where her daughter had really bad psoriasis and eczema. I mean, it was all over her body, and they were spending like 2 or 3K a month on treatment. So, our systems, they, are marketed that they can help reduce or alleviate those systems. Now, up to that point, I had never had any actual proof of that. So she got a system, and within 8 weeks, it went away. And she called me crying, like, it's all gone. She's so much better. It was awesome. So I really felt that. When I went to solar, to me, the money was the commission checks were huge, and the money was great. But I saw just how bad the customer experience can be. And even with a good company, with solar, I mean, you are kind of just guessing, as far as like usage goes and sun hours and stuff like that. And I did have some happy clients, but overall, I'd say a majority of the clients were not happy with the solar that they got. They felt like they didn't get what they were promised. And so, for me, it was fun to do it for a while. I mean, it was fun to grow a company. It was fun to make a lot of money. But after a while, like when you care about people and you just see how many people are upset with you and don't like the product and have all these issues with it. And it's not just our business, right? I mean, throughout the entire state and throughout the nation, I mean, companies have had issues. I mean, the company I worked for at the beginning, the water company, they had a solar division. They were nationwide. They went out of business, right? Because solar is a hard game. And I just saw that, and going into a business with that, I was like, I got to believe in the product. Like, I got to full stop believe it 100%. And with water, I do. And the sales cycle is small. People get to feel the benefits right away. So I know it's easier to keep customers happy. And to me, it just seems like an easier business to grow. So I was like, if I could pick the hard path or the easier path, I'd rather pick the easier path. So I went back into water, and it was that simple. It wasn't like this crazy, yeah, like you said, it's not like, oh my God, this is my biggest passion. It's just, I believe in water more. I know how it can affect people better. I can know it's an easier thing to sell, easier sales cycle. And I was like, I'd rather do something that's easier than harder. you know, no, business is hard enough. I'd rather do something that's easier than put myself through the ringer.
But also, I think that you seeing that result from one of your clients and seeing what impact it truly does have, might, I mean, I could be wrong, but it might have that little aid in your drive, because you're like, I know what this can do for you. Not only have I seen it with other clients, but also like I'm doing it. That I
Yeah.
see what it's doing for me. So versus like solar, it's like, yeah, you
Mhm.
see your electricity bill, going down,
Yeah.
but that's it.
Well, and also, like, with the economy, any sales job is going to be affected by interest rates and the Fed and all that stuff. But solar, even more so. I mean, when I got solar, I got it at 0.99. It's basically free money. Like, 2 years ago, and I say that caveat when people hear that help grow that business from 600 to 25 million. There's also that little caveat that I was also doing that during the, like, literally the market was perfect for it, right? It was the gold rush of solar. Like, if you went to a home, you're giving people free freaking money. I mean, people's utility bills are going to be like $50 less a month, and they got paid back by the state. So it was a no brainer, right? But the longevity of that has shown to not be very good, because now that the interest rates are super high, companies can't, the finance companies, because of how big these loans are, they're not paying out as much. So these companies just can't afford to operate. Whereas water, I think, one, there's more education required, but I do think it's still a sleeping industry. It's a massive industry, globally, right? I mean, if you look at like Culligan, I was looking at their statistics. I think they bring in like 20 billion a year, right? So big industry, but I still think society as a whole doesn't really know how bad their water is, even though we've had, PFAS scares. If you think about the DuPont issue, the Aaron Brockovich movie, Blackwater, all those movies kind of highlight, how water can affect you. But Flint, Michigan, another example. We all see those as isolated extreme incidents, kind of like a natural disaster in a way. Yet we don't realize that this stuff is in our water. It's just waiting to hurt you. And a lot of stuff is hurting you long term. And I think the younger generation is more so understanding that. So my vision, honestly, is I'm really trying to brand the company in a way to be that leader in the space. So when these kids who are like 15, 16, in the next 10 years, when they're, 26, 27, they start looking at homes, becoming homeowners. I want I want to capture those people. And I think the industry will continue to grow. I think our society is becoming more health conscious. We're understanding really how to optimize everything, and I think water is going to be at the center of that. So I think I'm early in as far as where the market is at, and I think that's a good place to be, because when the market finally does catch up and there's a new gold rush, I do think that gold rush will be in water, and I think I'll be primed to take advantage of it, because I'll already be in the space.
That's awesome. So what you're saying is drinking out of the hose as a kid wasn't the best for us.
No, man. I mean, honestly, what's crazy? It was probably better for you back in the day than it is now. Um, Mainly because there's new contaminants being introduced into the water every single day. People are dumping their pharmaceuticals into the common water wells every single day. And then the way they disinfect the water, like, this is what the craziest thing is. You got to remember, these pipes are super old that are coming into your homes, right? Now, what the main way that these water municipalities clean your water is through chlorine, right? They dump chlorine into water, which, if you really want to gross yourself out, they do it by about 10 times what you're allowed to have in the pool. Keep in mind, chlorine is highly oxidative, right? You have to wear protective gloves when handling pure chlorine. If anyone's owned a pool, they know this, right? And in fact, if you are exposed to chlorine for too long, especially in pools, you can get chlorine burn and get really sick because you also absorb it into your bloodstream. It goes into your skin, gets into your bloodstream, which is why pools are so regulated. Okay, if you ever go into the whiteboards, you'll see them writing down the chlorine levels because if there's too much chlorine, people will get really sick right away. The problem is within municipal water there's live bacteria, so they got to kill it somehow, otherwise you're going to get sick today. So basically what the government decided to do is they did a trade-off. It's like, we know chlorine will hurt you and we know it'll make you sick and it'll also destroy your home because obviously if you have something that oxidizes pipes, it causes leaks and damages appliances. They're like, if you drink live bacteria, you're going to get sick today. Not good. If you drink chlorine, you're not going to get super sick today, but it is going to hurt you long term, right? You can get oxidative stress. It can, impact the way your blood operates. It can cause all kinds of nasty problems. Now there are better solutions like UV lighting, but that would be super expensive for the city to do for everything, right? So it's one of those things where they do the bare minimum to keep you safe because they don't want to incur the costs of doing the thing that would keep you safer. So it falls back on the homeowner, unfortunately. But yeah, and the thing is, when that chlorine goes through the pipes, it interacts with contaminants that are in those pipes or organic material that's in that pipe, and you get what's called chlorine byproducts, right? I think Andrew Huberman actually did a podcast about this, which was super awesome to hear. And in almost every waterway in the United States, there's chloroform in the water that you're drinking and showering in. Keep in mind, guys, chloroform, the thing that you use to make people pass out, okay, is in your water. And that is directly because they use chlorine. And people are like, oh, don't worry, I use a Brita filter or I use a zero water filter or whatever. Those things aren't doing shit to solve that. I'm sorry. Okay. Those contaminants are going through those little activated charcoal carbon filters. One of the biggest scam filters that I've seen right now is that zero water filter because they're like, oh, there's no TDS. People don't even know what TDS is. Like TDS inherently isn't bad for you. All right. TDS is just total dissolved solids. So sometimes it can be calcium and magnesium, which, surprise, surprise, are good for you to drink. They're just terrible on your pipes. So if you could have, now obviously there is some bad TDS, right? Some of those solids are organic minerals that you don't want to be ingesting. Fair enough. But to say, oh, this got rid of all my TDS, I'm healthy, it's false advertising. It's insane to me.
That's crazy. So, I mean, with your journey from, the army to, or the military
The
to,
Navy. I'm not God. I'm
no,
not an army guy.
I know,
Jeez.
I said army, and I had to switch it to military because I know
Oh
you said civilian
no.
stuff, but from the military, right?
Yeah.
Um, then becoming an entrepreneur, right? You've had an extensive career and journey thus far, and I know you're going to continue to grow. And honestly, like I think your business is awesome, and I
Thanks,
think
man.
more people should really look into it. But what is the one piece of advice or one lesson you've learned along your journey that you think that the listeners should know?
Um, don't look at what social media portrays all this shit to be. Um, it's hyper glorified. And honestly, the people that you think are like these people that are like multi decade millionaires, they're not that smart, to be honest with you. I've met them, trust me. A lot of these guys are probably dumber than a lot of you. The difference is they have the guts to just go for it, which is really all it is. If you didn't let fear control you, you'd probably be further along than you want to be. And that's something that I learned because I was afraid to start my own business until I saw people that weren't that much more intelligent than me really killing it in it. You realistically, if you have a goal and you want to start a business and you're willing to work insanely hard for that business, you'll be successful. It's really that simple. You don't have to be super smart. You don't have to have had a great background. You could be an asshole and still make it. You just have to do enough positive primary actions that will support your goals and your dreams. And as long as you don't quit, you'll be successful. And as long as you take care of the people that you're dealing with, you'll also be successful. That's all you have to do. Um, so yeah, I think people get too in their heads. I think they need permission to do it. And I think they think that success and entrepreneurship is for other people. It's not for them. And if they only got to see and experience some things that I've seen and experienced, I think more people would do it. When you, because I'm sure you've probably had similar experiences. Like it's just work ethic, right? I've been in a lot of circles with people. I'm just like, how are you making this kind of money? And it's just because the one thing they have that I think people don't have, they just don't have the fear. They have like this sometimes delusional belief that they deserve it. And I think that's what I have as well. I think you just have to believe in yourself enough. And I have a saying that I don't think a lot of people like, but I think everyone should. I don't think being a narcissist is good, but I think you need to have a little narcissism to win because in essence, narcissism is a negative. Like you only care about yourself, right? That's what narcissism is. But I think you have to have a little bit of that to believe that you can actually achieve something great. Um, and I think everybody can. I think we got put on this earth for a short amount of time. I think just being born is a privilege. So that alone means you should be able to accomplish great things. I think the reason why everyone else falls into the middle class is they just buy into the narrative that their average parents or average people around them tell them, and they don't, and they get afraid to actually go for it because everyone's like, oh, you're gonna be homeless and fail. Like it's so crazy. Like you'll figure it out, you know. Like unless you develop a drug problem, dude, even if your dream or business fails, you'll be okay. Like the skills you learn will make you employable somewhere else. Like you will figure it out. I promise you. When your back is against the wall, you will figure it out. So just take the freaking leap, man. Like what else you got to lose? You're gonna die anyway. Like who cares? Like, and if it doesn't work out, and you do have to go to a different job, like a 9 to 5, to support yourself, well, at least you'll know you tried. Like, and for me, that's the biggest thing. Like, I at least wanted to know that I could try, and that was kind of how it was with the business, right? I sacrificed a lot for the other guy's company, and I just realized I was like, fuck, I'm almost 30. I turned 30 at that time. I think I was turning 31. I was like, fuck, dude, like if I don't start a business now at 31, because I was thinking about going to work for another company instead. I was thinking about just going back to water treatment. But I was like, fuck, if I don't at least try, and at that time I met multiple business owners that were my age, but a little bit older, like 35-ish. I was like, crap, these guys did it. Like, if I don't do it now, then when? And I just realized it's like, if I don't go for it now, I will never do it. And I was like, I would regret that forever. So I just said, fuck it. Let's do it. Yeah.
No, that's powerful. No, thank you. And for anyone listening, make sure you do share the show. You share a show that is someone that with someone that is coming up in the entrepreneurial space or that's thinking about coming into the entrepreneurial space. And make sure you leave a review. And then Justin, where can people connect with you?
So I'm working on getting my handles all the same because feedback this has been a pain for people, but you can find me on Spotify for the Harmony Hustle podcast. That's easy enough. Instagram, JS_shoes, SHOEZ. I think if you just search Justin Shoemaker, I'll pop up. TikTok, same thing, Justin Shoemaker, but official Waterboy, the Waterboy official. And then YouTube, Justin Shoemaker as well. So if you search Justin Shoemaker on all these platforms, I should pop up, even though my handles are all kind of all over the place. But yeah, come say hello. If you do follow me from this podcast, put a comment down below, and definitely check out the episode that me and Devin did on Harmony. It was by far one of my favorite conversations I've had.
No, thank you so much for coming on. And like always, guys, appreciate y'all. Love y'all. Talk to y'all on the next one.
Peace.